Welcome to the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, where it is never too early for fantasy football. My name is Jeff.
And I'm Alex.
As always, thank you for downloading, listening, liking, and commenting on our podcast videos. Please join our community by subscribing to us on the socials. Our handle on all platforms is at N2E Fantasy. We are also available on all major podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy. Alex, what do we have on today's show?
On this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast, we are doing our free agency bonanza, going over the official signing day, Wednesday, and going over everyone that has been signed or is in the process of being signed, even if it hasn't been officially announced.
Do this division by division. So we're going to start with your favorite tight end. And my not favorite tight end, Dolphins signed former Falcons tight end Jonnu Smith to a 2-year deal. And do you believe that he will be fantasy relevant in that offense?
Well, he was pseudo-fantasy relevant in Atlanta's offense.
Arthur.
I can tell you this, he's the best tight end that has been in Miami in probably over a decade.
Not disrespect Mike Gesicki like that.
Mike Gesicki got a much smaller deal. I
It's
think
not
that
the size
is
of the
talented.
deal, folks.
I think Johnny is talented. I think he showed last year he could potentially be a tight end 1 for a team. I think he's probably a tight end 2 with tight end 1 upside. So I wouldn't draft him really high, but he could be a tight end sleeper going into fantasy drafts. So that's someone I'd keep an eye on and see how he meshes with the team. Another yards after the catch guy, very physical, very athletic. He's the one that Bill Belichick liked at some point and gave him a huge contract in New England. But, not having Tom Brady didn't work out. So Johnny's flashed since he was originally with Tennessee. So I thought he would have been fantasy relevant more often than he has. So I think this is a good landing spot for him.
Yeah, and surprisingly, but not surprisingly, this was the Dolphins' only move during the free agency period to acquire talent. So they had a little bit they had a little bit of cap issues. They had to overhaul some of their defense because of these cap issues and concerns going forward. So, and I think they're only going to get more cash strapped as they go on because they are seriously talking about an extension for Tua, and I hear that through the grapevine that his extension numbers are around the $50 million per year mark. So it's not going to look pretty on the books for a little while here in Miami. But there's no state tax.
I just don't think Tua is worth that contract.
Me either, but that's what I heard through the grapevine. We'll see if it comes to fruition or not. The team would be smart to do it a shorter term deal. They're going to do for that amount. But maybe like a Daniel Jones, 2 years guaranteed, and then we'll see after that.
Right. Well, their division rival Patriots have made some moves, getting ready for a potential quarterback to go there, maybe. But they have they've re-signed Hunter Henry to a 3-year deal. So he's in the tight end 1 conversation, probably top end tight end 2, bottom end tight end 1. Re-signed Kendrick Bourne, who I think should be more of a wide receiver 3 on that team. Probably a depth guy for fantasy purposes. They also signed Antonio Gibson from the Commanders to a 3-year deal. Maybe to split time with Ramondre Stevenson, maybe to be a quality backup. And they also poached Jacoby Brissett, quarterback with the Commanders as well, someone who's been familiar with the Patriot system. Released Devontae Parker, signed Jalen Reagor, and they also signed Austin Hooper at tight end. So, Jeff, what do you make of all of these deals? I know there's quite a few.
Yeah, it seems like they've been the most busy right now. Brissett does appear to be the starter going into week 1 right now. We'll see if that's the case after the draft. But they reunite with Brissett, who was their 3rd round pick in 2016, I believe, and they traded him in 2017 for Philip Dorsett, who plays for the Denver Broncos. So they're both still in the league, which is pretty amazing considering how journeyman both Philip Dorsett and Jacoby Brissett have been. And the Gibson deal, the Jacoby Brissett deal, and the Austin Hooper deal are just agreed upon right now. The Patriots haven't officially announced them yet. We have learned from our past mistakes that deals can fall through at the last minute and players can choose to sign with other teams. We actually had a defensive player do that right after free agency started and spurred the 49ers and went right to the Cowboys. So until these deals are actually signed, they're just agreements in my mind here. But Devontae Parker is an interesting wide receiver candidate. We'll get to him a little bit later because he's already landed on his feet. But I do like Kendrick Bourne. He was having quite a year last year, so he does have value in fantasy, and I do expect him to have some value as long as the quarterback play is somewhat competent. I guess I might have misspoke on Jacoby Brissett because I still do have Bailey Zappi there, so I do think it's a quarterback competition as of right now. But it'll be interesting to see if they can get consistent, competent quarterback play out of any of that room. And with the coach Gerard Mayo, I don't know if he can develop quarterbacks. I don't know if his staff can develop quarterbacks. So this will be a really interesting test right off the bat with this new coaching staff.
Yeah, I know they're probably going to take a quarterback. The top three teams, so Bears, Commanders, Patriots, are all going to take a quarterback, as it seems at this moment. I think Brissett is a good backup, especially if you don't fully trust Bailey Zappi to start or be a bridge guy. Parker just didn't work out there, and I think the last 3 seasons he's posted at bottom numbers for separation. Like literally out of all wide receivers, he posted like towards the bottom, if not dead last. Hunter Henry's a big re-signing, and I think that also Austin Hooper is a good number 2 tight end for that team. Bourne is a solid guy to keep around. I think that they pursued Calvin Ridley. They weren't successful in getting Calvin Ridley, but they're trying. They might even be in the Higgins market right now. We don't know. So they're trying to get better at wide receiver. They're trying to have everything set up for the next quarterback, and I think it's going to be a rookie. I think that they're doing what they can to be successful moving forward. They learned from the Mac Jones situation. We could obviously throw in that Mac Jones was traded to the Jaguars, so that happened before free agency happened. So there is a lot of movement. This offense is going to be very different, but the only real constant here is Ramondre Stevenson and Hunter Henry.
And yeah, we can move on to the rival, the New York Jets here. And the New York Jets made must signing and re-signing kicker Greg Zuerlein to a 2-year deal. He was probably the best part of the Jets last year, other than Breece Hall. And also, after the owner had said in the offseason, we really need to find a real backup, the Jets agreed to a 2-year deal with former Giants quarterback, so he just moves right across the hall to a different locker room with Tyrod Taylor, who I believe is starting for maybe his 7th team, or on his 7th team. We'll see if he gets starts this year. There are rumors floating out there right now that Aaron Rodgers is a potential VP candidate for one of the independents in this upcoming presidential election. I can't imagine being a VP candidate and playing quarterback in the NFL. It just doesn't seem like you can do both. So it'll be interesting to see where that goes. It's just kind of funny because Aaron Rodgers said in the last month or so that distractions need to be out of the building, and here he is creating his own distractions. So a little hypocritical right now by Mr. Aaron Rodgers.
Well, apparently, we should be so jealous that actually happened, but apparently Aaron Rodgers is in a cave in Costa Rica and emerged at the perfect time to all of a sudden have a cell phone and say, I just saw my cell phone for the first time in a while and it 300 and something messages on it. The rumor was that RFK Jr. had him on a short list for VP candidates and hadn't gotten a no yet. Well, Aaron Rodgers is in a cave in Costa Rica. He's not going to say no. But I wouldn't put it past Aaron Rodgers to actually do it anyway. Like it seems believable to happen, and it would be so New York Jets for that to happen. They gave up all this for Rodgers. He tears his Achilles, and then the next season he's like, oh, I'm going to run for VP instead of running with the RFK instead of play football.
Yeah, we will see, but that could leave Tyrod Taylor the starting quarterback for the New York Jets this year. So keep a lookout on that one. That's that. As we've said, Tyrod has just agreed to a deal with the Jets right now, so we're waiting for them to hit pen to paper in order for this to be an actual signing. Now we move on to the last team in the AFC East, and that is the Buffalo Bills, and they made one signing this period so far, and they agreed to a 1-year deal with former Falcons wide receiver Mac Hollins. And Mac Hollins actually had a pretty good season, I think, 2 years ago. And but this is by far the best quarterback that he has played with, and so we'll see here if he has a role on the team. The team is a little bit young at wide receiver right now with Khalil Shakir, with KJ Hamler, and now Mac Hollins joining the fray. But it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Mac Hollins in this depth chart and even the draft. There's a possibility that the Buffalo Bills draft their next wide receiver. But circling back around 2022 with the Raiders, in 17 games, he had 57 catches, 690 yards, and 4 touchdowns. So, and that was with Derek Carr. And I do believe Josh Allen is a much better quarterback than Derek Carr is. So, I mean,
Debatable.
it's possible. So the depth chart behind Diggs is just up in the air.
And relevant. A bunch of really good wide receivers. So I can see a number of teams going for wide receiver this year. Circling back to the Giants, the Jets real quick. They still have Zach Wilson, don't they? Like, could he be the starter, or do you think he gets moved?
Well, considering Woody Johnson said that we need a real backup on the team, tells me what everything that they think of Zach Wilson at this point. It's better if they move
starter
off of him. So we'll see. But it's better that they move off of him at this point.
What do they do if Aaron Rodgers is out?
They panic. Big time. And I think that team is terrible without Aaron Rodgers, and Breece Hall should go request a trade at that point.
Yeah, we'll see. All right.
Absolutely.
We can move on to the next division here. We'll go to the AFC North. Steelers have been making some moves. The Steelers
have
released Allen Robinson, and they are on the verge of signing Russell Wilson to a 1-year minimum deal. The Broncos officially released him, so he should be signing with the Steelers officially. They should announce it any second officially. And they also traded Deontay Johnson away to the Panthers in exchange for a corner and a 6th-round pick. So Steelers are going to be a little bit different this year. I expect them to be a team to target wide receiver in the draft as well. Jeff, are these good moves? Do these give you good vibes for the Steelers' outlook in both the NFL and for fantasy purposes?
So there's rumors around the Steelers right now. Obviously, their wide receiver room without Robinson and Johnson are going to look a lot different this year. But there's rumors around the Steelers right now that they're looking at Tyler Boyd. Russell Wilson is now officially a free agent as the Broncos have released him officially. So now he does need to put pen to paper with the Steelers, but this is for a league minimum deal. He did meet with the Giants before he signed with the Steelers too. So that was kind of an interesting little tidbit that they were looking to move on from Daniel Jones or give Daniel Jones some competition, something like that. But that did not come to fruition. I do think Russell Wilson's an improvement on Kenny Pickett, an improvement on Mason Rudolph. So I do believe that this team is probably in playoff contention again this year, as long as they can stay healthy, because we know that there will be at least 1 or 2 teams with quarterback injuries, quarterback issues, and controversies. So I'm hoping that they can stay in the contention for this year. And we'll see if they bring in Tyler Boyd. That could be an interesting addition into this wide receiver room. And he would really help them in 2 receiver sets. But they also have Kelvin Austin, the speedster. So we could see Russell Wilson potentially get a connection here with Kelvin Austin, more like a Tyler Lockett connection. So we'll kind of see what this team looks like in the preseason. And I think there's a lot of places that they could go. I think if last year was like down here, like this year could be up here, but you also have Joe Burrow and such coming back, and you also have Justin Herbert coming back and Harbaugh now with Herbert. So are they a lock for the playoffs? No, but I do think they'll be in contention for playoffs this year.
I think any of these teams in the AFC North will potentially be playoff teams. It's going to be, again, another loaded AFC, so we'll see. But the Browns have made a trade for Jerry Jeudy for a 5th and 6th round pick, and they have also signed Jameis Winston as a backup or starting quarterback for that team, depending on how you look at it. They also have signed Nyheim Hines to a 1-year deal as well. So I don't know what that means for Ford. I don't know what that means for Hunt. I don't know what that means if Chubb is 100% healthy or not. So I don't know how that stacks out, but it wasn't a very big deal, so we'll see how that stacks up. Jeff, are these good moves? Doesn't look like there's any cuts. So what do you think?
So it looks like the Browns now have a 3-receiver set that will be Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy, and Elijah Moore, which really does hurt your buddy Tillman a little in his progression this year. Maybe he can climb over them both in the depth chart. I really hope so, because Jerry Jeudy doesn't excite me anywhere. but he doesn't need to come here to be a 1. He's not a first-round pick, so he gets a fresh start and doesn't have the expectations of being a first overall pick. All right. So Jameis Winston's a great backup quarterback for Deshaun Watson because they are very similar quarterback play. And then I'm not really sure what to make of Nyheim Hines right now, only because we don't really know what's going on with Nick Chubb. We don't know how his rehab and his recovery is going. So I don't really know if Nyheim Hines is here for more of a fill-in role, more of a kick. Hopefully we learn a little bit more as the offseason goes on. I still don't think that Nick Chubb's job is 100% safe in this organization. I think it really depends on how the draft falls to them, and if they end up with another running back that they draft that they feel comfortable with, Nick Chubb could be a casualty in a heartbeat. So, I'm not suggesting it's likely to happen, but it's on the table.
So I don't think Jerry Jeudy is going to do anything this year. I think there's a good chance that he could be cut, before the year's up, before his contract is even up. I think he's kind of like a locker room cancer, and he's someone who's allergic to catching the football for a wide receiver. That's not very good. And I think it's telling. It's weird to me that the Browns gave up more for Jeudy than they gave up for Amari Cooper. They only gave up a 5th-round pick for Amari Cooper. They gave up a 5th and a 6th for Jerry Jeudy, someone who's been a bust, when Amari Cooper has been a productive wide receiver his entire career so far. So that's wild to me. Jameis Winston, someone who I think is probably going to start significant games for the Browns, because I don't see Deshaun Watson being the guy full season. I think the Browns hope that he will be the guy this season, but they clearly wanted to hedge their bets and bring in one of the best backups in the league, and someone who's still a quality player. I think when it comes to Tillman, I said this about him and Hyatt going into the draft last year, as I said, they're from the Tennessee program. They're going to need a year or two to develop, but I think they're both very talented players. They may never live up to it, and that's entirely possible. But I think Tillman has a higher upside than Jerry Jeudy, so it's questionable to me. Ultimately, it's not that much when it comes to assets. It's not that big of a deal. They thought it was worth a flyer, and it could work out for them. So we'll see how that goes. I think you're right about Nyheim Hines. I think he's probably more of a returner and like a running back for that roster, and might get more use when Chubb's out. But when Chubb's fully healthy, I think Hines will be an afterthought in the offense.
Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. We should mention that Jerry Jeudy is only 24 years old. I just don't think he knows what style of wide receiver that he wants to play, and I think that's the biggest issue here. So he really needs to reinvent himself and reinvent himself fast, and he could actually have a decent NFL career still if he does. Because some receivers don't come out until 22, 23, and here he is 24 with a chance to reinvent himself in a new spot.
He needs Steve Smith to have a wide receiver boot camp with him. Get him, turn him into a real receiver.
For sure. All right, we'll move on to one of your favorite teams, the Cincinnati Bengals. And we have wide receiver T. Higgins requesting a trade, and he has confirmed through the grapevine that there has been no long march of 20th year. So it's really hard for him to be overvaluing himself or saying the team's undervaluing him when there is no trade talks at all going on, or no extension talks at all going on right now. So it's kind of an interesting strategy by the Bengals. It tells me that the Bengals don't want him past this year if they keep him this year. So we'll see if they honor his trade request or if they make him stick around and stick out his franchise tag year. We did see how that worked with the running backs last year. They all decided to take it easy last year, it feels like, and they ended up moving on this offseason, so that could be the T. Higgins route as well. The Bengals agreed to a 2-year deal with former Colts running back Zach Moss, and they also agreed to a 1-year deal with former Patriots tight end Mike Really Awesome Gesicki.
Oh boy, where do I begin with this one? Well, let's start with T. Higgins. I said in an earlier podcast, I think odds are he stays with the Bengals this season or gets traded to the Titans. I think he stays with the Bengals. They haven't had extension talks with him, but they've allegedly declined multiple offers for Higgins, and I don't think he's really on the block. I think they want to roll it back this year with Higgins on the roster, and they're willing to take the risk that he won't be on the roster next season. So they're going to make him earn it. Either he performs this year and he earns a contract, or he doesn't perform and they can get him re-signed for a cheap deal. That's ultimately where it seems like it's headed. And I think the market's kind of dried up a little bit, especially with how good the wide receiver class in this draft is going to be. So we might not see any movement on this at all this year, but if we do, it might be a few weeks. Zach Moss, I don't think Zach Moss is a true running back one for his team. I think he got a deal that's more of a committee back deal. Is like 4 million per year, so it's like eight million over 2 years. I think it's front loaded, so he's getting 4.5 the first part. I don't think that prevents them from drafting someone. I don't think that prevents them at all from adding someone else to this group. But I think that Chase Brown is going to be a thorn in fantasy owners' side to invest heavily in Zach Moss.
Agree.
Gesicki, I think, is a decent dart throw, but I will not buy into it because he's fooled us a couple different times here. So I think he's a backup for that team and just replaces the void that Irv Smith leaves. So I don't buy the hype. You guys can gamble on him as an upside guy, but not me.
Yeah, it won't be me either. I learned my lesson on Irv Smith last year, and yeah, I just don't feel like Cincinnati targets the tight end year by year. I'm really noticing a tight end that they are going with. Right, anything else on the Bengals before we hop to the last team in the division?
I mean, if I could pronounce his name, I would say that it looks like Boyd's going to move on. So I think the wide receiver they drafted last year, Yasofa or whatever, I can never pronounce his name. I think he's going to be a sneaky fantasy player, maybe even a really good sleeper.
Didn't they also draft a Jones last year? Charlie Jones?
What a great question.
So I do believe that he is on their roster. I have him as their third wide receiver right now, but obviously his stats and everything like that will move up. But yeah, he was drafted last year.
Andre Iosivas is the one that I'm talking about.
Okay, so there's two 2-year wide receivers to look out for.
Okay, and we can move on to the Ravens now. They lost Gus Edwards, but they signed Derrick Henry.
Where'd they lose him?
To a 2-year deal. So Derrick Henry, what was it? An $18 million deal, roughly, over 2 years. So it's really hard for me because I didn't like Derrick Henry with the Titans, and he performed better than I thought. But it's also a down running back year at the same time. So he finished higher than what his actual stats would have indicated a year or two before. But I think he's a better fit for the Ravens altogether. He might be back in the round 1 conversation, but I'd probably take him in round 2. I like the fit. I think that was the best fit. I know you wanted Eagles, right? Is that the team that you preferred him to go to?
I mean, I like him here. I would have liked him in Dallas. I would have liked him in Philly. I would have liked him in a lot of different locations.
I think it's better that he moved on from Tennessee. So I think he's more valuable to me this year than he was last year.
Oh, right. Yeah, I really like him, and I agree that he's going to be a second-round pick, and I will take him every single time because I think that team is going to be much more running heavy this year, if I had to guess.
All right. On to Henry's former team and move on to the AFC South. The Tennessee Titans agreed to a 3-year deal with Cowboys' former running back Tony Pollard. Cowboys feel like they made a mistake, franchise tag to a cheaper deal. He walked. For whatever reason, the Titans decided to sign a running back when they already have Spears that everyone thought was going to be the RB1 for them. Now they have a committee, so that's interesting, and I'd like to hear your take on that. But Titans also snuck up and stole Calvin Ridley from the Jaguars for a 4-year, $92 million contract with $50 million guaranteed. That kind of blows my mind. And I wonder how you feel about both of these guys and the interesting fit for them here.
So, I don't think Tajay Spears' season, RB1 season, is going to be happening. But I do think that Tajay Spears and Tony Pollard kind of have overlapping skill sets. And that does concern me a little bit. Like, I think it's going to be a true competition from these two backs. And they have a system that they want to run, and it's very clear what type of back they want in that system right now. I don't know if you got to this yet, but the Titans also signed former Jaguars wide receiver Calvin Ridley to a massive 4-year deal, and he spurred the Jaguars big time, and he spurred the Patriots, waited till after the free agency period got kicked off, and signed with the Titans here. So now him and Hopkins and Burks are in the 3 receiver sets. But Brian Callahan comes from a organization that used three receivers quite frequently in Chase and Higgins and Boyd. So this is not going to be anything new, and I do expect all three of them to be on the field at times. Now, I think the biggest trying piece of this for me is going to be fitting all of their stats into Will Levis's stats, because I do believe Will Levis is the guy for this year, and he'll be the guy. I don't think there is anyone else that they will sign to be even remotely competition for Will Levis. So I do think that this is going to be interesting. So we're either going to have to downgrade everyone's stats a little bit, or we're going to have to upgrade Will Levis's stats a little bit. And the truth is probably somewhere in the middle there. Like, there's got to be a little downgrade for Ridley and Hopkins and a little upgrade for Will Levis. So it'll be interesting when I finally get some stats out on this. But fitting all of the stats into Will Levis is going to be very difficult. All right, so we can move on to the next team here, and that's the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we did mention earlier that the Patriots did trade quarterback Mac Jones to Jacksonville for a 6th-round pick. So basically, he becomes the primary backup to Trevor Lawrence, and this is a chance for Mac Jones to really rehab his value and potentially be a free agent after this year. So he'll have to go in, be a model teammate. Kind of crazy because he'll actually make more money living in Florida. As we know, the state taxes don't exist there. So it is going to be a much more lucrative deal for Mac Jones to live in Florida, probably much nicer weather. So it'll probably make him a little bit happier. So maybe it'll make him a little bit better of a teammate, which is the biggest gripe against him. So we mentioned that the Jaguars lost out on Calvin Ridley. They did sign former Buffalo Bills wide receiver Gabe Davis on a 3-year deal, and I know Alex thinks that was a gross overpay, and I will let him talk about that here in a second. And then the Jaguars, in a minor move, in a re-signing move, they re-signed their running back, Ernest Johnson, to a 1-year deal. He should be the third-string running back in this backfield. And I do know that the Jaguars said that they want to take a little bit of the workload away from ETN, give it to Bigsby, which is what you were saying last year. You were just a year too early on that. But Bigsby is going to have to take a big leap forward this year in order to make that pan out. All right, I will let you break down the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Right. So the Jaguars brought in their future quarterback, one, and probably the same. And Jaguars did no favors to Trevor Lawrence to try to make him a franchise quarterback by letting Calvin Ridley walk for allegedly only a difference of $2 million spread over 4 years to a division rival team. So I don't get it. I mean, if they thought he was a wide receiver one for them, they thought he was a top receiver in the league, $2 million over 4 years, which is really $500,000 every single season of that contract, is not out of the question for me. That makes no sense to me. I don't know why they let him walk. I understand why they got Mac Jones, this high upside former first round pedigree. They didn't really have much behind Trevor Lawrence, and if Lawrence got hurt, Mac Jones played well, rehabbed his value. It's a valuable trade piece. So those are good. Gabe Davis, like you alluded to, I think is a terrible deal. I get that $13 million per season is wide receiver $2 figures in today's realm, today's marketplace and free agency. But he's being paid right now as a top 30 wide receiver in the league, when I think that he is a top 90 player, not a top 30 player. So I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I understand there's lots of players that are better than him that are on rookie deals still. I get that, but it's just disgusting to me to pay Gabe Davis $13 million per year, and knowing that if they paid him $10 million per year and had that $3 million that they could have applied towards Calvin Ridley, they could have kept Calvin Ridley. And I would rather have Calvin Ridley at an expensive deal than Gabe Davis at $13 million per year. I don't think that helps the team. So now they're stuck with Christian Kirk as their wide receiver one, which is a little unconventional, but kind of reminiscent of Doug Baldwin with Seattle during that time. They were going to get rid of Zay Jones. I think Zay Jones might end up staying. I think they might have cut him. We'll see. And Gabe Davis. So I don't... And Duvernay that they signed as well. We didn't put it in on our notes here, but Duvernay was brought in more as a special teams role anyway. I just don't know what they're doing. They missed out because of the Texans, and now like they didn't win the division and they lost the last 4 or 5 games of the season, and now they got worse. So not a good look for them. They're kind of a joke franchise to me. Darius Johnson doesn't move the needle for me at all, so I really don't care about that. I'm just happy to be a Texans fan right now. The Texans had an amazing offseason.
Yeah, we'll get to them in a few minutes here. Offensively, they made some strides. There's still some questions that I have with the Texans and kind of what they're doing. But yeah, Zay Jones, I think, costs like $10 million against the cap this year, and he's someone they could have cut to sign Ridley as well. It just really seems like Ridley didn't want to go back to Jacksonville when it was all said and done. And I don't know if that was always his plan and he just didn't want to get the franchise tag applied to him, or if it became his plan a little bit later in free agency and this kind of came together really quickly.
Sent it to us in the Twitter sphere is the Jaguars and Ridley had a wink, nod, like, hey, we'll sign after 4 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, so we don't have to give up the second-round pick, so we only give up a third-round pick and that initial deal to get you. But we'll give you the going rate. We'll match whatever deal you got out there. And you just sign with us. Well, he waited until after 4, but it looks like he got a better deal from Tennessee than he was getting from Jacksonville. I don't know if Jacksonville really was going to offer him $90 million and wouldn't go up. I don't know if it even approached whatever Tennessee gave him, but it didn't happen. What everyone thought was almost a lock didn't happen. Didn't go to the Patriots either, so I don't know what they offered him or if he just felt like they were completely off the table altogether.
I wonder if they were just bargaining chips.
Yeah. They look silly having Gabe Davis and Zay Jones getting paid what they are right there. So I don't know. I don't know. Like I sent you that text earlier that the Walter football guys talked about a rumor that Ridley wasn't a good locker room guy and that they were very frustrated with him and he's immature and doing dumb things, and so the Jaguars didn't even want to keep him. So I don't know what's true. Did they have a $90 million offer for him? Or did they not want him at all? Or did they want him at X price and were absolutely unwilling to waiver? I don't know. But it's a bad look for them, him going to their division rival.
Yeah, I think that was a big message on Calvin Ridley's mind here. He did get over 1,000 yards with Jacksonville last year, and Gabe Davis had like 31 less catches, but only 270 less yards. So they had about the same amount of touchdowns. So I don't know. Maybe the production isn't as different as we think it is, and we will see what Gabe Davis does in age 25 season versus Ridley being age 30 season this year. And I don't think Ridley's like Hall of Famer elite, so we should start to see the downfall of Ridley. And now they have 2 expensive over 30-year-old wide receivers in Tennessee, but both of them should be able to contribute, and we should be able to see if Will Levis is a guy or the guy.
Right. We will see about those 2 teams, but we can move on to the division champions, and that would be the Houston Texans. First order of business was re-signing kicker Kaimi Fairbairn, which is one of the best kickers in the league right now. Yes, he had an injury stint this past season, but I'm glad to have him back. Texans also swapping out their defensive players, been getting better defensive players as well, so I appreciate that. I know we don't talk about defensive signings, and I won't go into particulars, but those of you who follow it, you know, Texans let Singletary walk, and were able to snag a trade for Joe Mixon, who was in the process of being cut by the Bengals. The Texans reached out to him and decided to do a future 2025 conditional 7th-round pick to get Joe Mixon, and this was a good idea because if they let him go to free agency, they would have had to pay him more, but instead, doing a trade, he only counts for $2 million on the Texans' books, and the Bengals still get the cap hit on their side, but they save $2 million instead of $1.5 million for releasing him. So it works out for both, and I think he's a better running back than Singletary was, so I'm happy about that. That doesn't prevent the Texans from going after someone in the draft or another free agent running back, because I think they want 2 solid guys, as well as still working on Damian Pierce to see if they can salvage that or not. We'll see. But Texans making moves, re-signing also Noah Brown to be their 3rd wide receiver. doesn't stop them from going after a wide receiver in the draft. Although I think they'll be heavy on the defensive side in the draft. But Jeff, what do you think about the Texan signings? Not super flashy, but seems pretty solid to me.
So I think my biggest gripe with the Texans is that Robert Woods is still on the roster right now. I just don't think he adds much. I don't think he fits into the scheme and the fit of this culture right now. And I don't really think that he contributed too much last year. 40 grabs, 426 yards, and 1 touchdown. And I know you were just talking about how expensive wide receivers can be. He's not that cheap of a wide receiver at all. And I don't know if he offers a veteran presence that is really wanted and needed right now. But his cap hit this year is $9.75 million, and the dead cap, if they got rid of him, is only $4.75 million. So they could save $5 million just straight up this year by cutting him and not have to pay him his cash of $6.5 million this year. So it's kind of an interesting thought. He's 32. Is he really contributing that much to the team on his 2-year, $15 million contract last year?
I don't even think he should have been signed. I understand why they did, because it was a low risk, high upside signing, but he's done. I don't see him contributing much anymore. I think he should retire. I think they should have somebody else brought in. I mean, maybe Mechie has a better year this year, but I would rather go with Nico, Tank Dell, Noah Brown, Mechie, and a rookie from the draft, as well as Hutchinson. Like, those 6 guys, great. Bring someone in the draft, have those other 5 guys. Robert Woods should be gone. I agree there.
Yeah, I just don't understand if there's a better way to spend the money, in my opinion, on except for Robert Woods there. But maybe he offers something to this young receiving locker room that we don't see tangibly on the field. So there is always that as well. He does seem like to be a really good locker room guy. So we just have to assume that he's offering something that we're not seeing. All right, last team. I know we kind of breezed over the Joe Mixon piece, but I'm trying to still figure out where to slot Joe Mixon in rankings right now. But the Colts and franchise tag wide receiver Michael Pittman reached a 3-year deal. What are your thoughts on this, Alex? I know you're a big Pittman guy.
He's the wide receiver 1 there. They have a young quarterback that they want to keep happy and give him a chance to develop. You need that guy. Michael Pittman, there's very few situations out there where he would have been the wide receiver 1 at those locations. I mean, there's a decent amount, or at least there started to be a decent amount before the free agency period, but he's for sure the number 1 guy, probably to get 130, 150 targets with the Colts. Would be lesser at most places. I think he's on pace to be like another Keenan Allen type, so I'm excited for him. I think with the full season of Anthony Richardson healthy, or at least a majority season at a bare minimum, he'll get more deep balls thrown his way as well. So we'll see his game expand and explode. That's my hope. That's what I think will happen. I like it a lot. We also should mention that Moss moved on. So we talked about him earlier. Then Moss went to the Bengals, and Sermon was not tendered a contract, so he is no longer restricted, and now he's a full unrestricted free agent. So maybe a team out there will sign him. Probably not as a starter, but there's always hope. Some say hope is the most powerful force in the universe. So just keep that in mind.
Yes. We both know people that still believe in Trey Sermon. We both know people that believe in Zach Moss being a bell cow, and we are not along those lines at all.
No.
And we will not tell them that to their face because we like them to have bad opinions at times. So,
and if they listen to this, we'll hear about it. So we'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can move on to the last division of the AFC, and then we can power through the NFC. Broncos are going to be a lot. Broncos, they started with the restructure of wide receiver Tim Patrick, so they'll at least have a wide receiver on the roster. They traded Jerry Jeudy, as we already discussed, to the Cleveland Browns. They were able to re-sign their kicker Will Lutz, who flirted with Jacksonville, and then decided not to sign with Jacksonville and went back to the Broncos. They re-signed Adam Troutman, which I don't know why he's there at all.
It's a Peyton guy.
They cut Russell Wilson to get the biggest dead cap ever at this point. That's setting records the Denver Broncos are. They are setting records. Not in a good way, but Sean Payton is out there to get on every Hall of Fame, every record book. Also, they're no longer suspected to trade Cortland Sutton anymore, although I wouldn't say that's off the table. A lot of stuff is going on there. Jeff, how do you feel about the Broncos situation and their moves so far?
So they still have Jarrett Stidham under contract, but it doesn't seem like Jarrett Stidham's the guy just from the way they talk about it inside of the organization. Like Peyton's always like the next guy. And I feel like if Jarrett Stidham was the next guy, you would refer to him as, we're confident in Jarrett Stidham, blah, blah, blah. So, and I don't hear that from him. Adam Trout is now in the Broncos, so he seems to be a Sean Payton guy. Everyone is very big on Marvin Mims getting a bump from the Jerry Jeudy trade. I still want to keep an eye out for Tim Patrick. As long as he can stay healthy through training camp, he's a guy that can contribute on a team. And obviously that depends on a quarterback situation, because if a quarterback's pretty bad, it might just be Cortland Sutton and nobody else that gets to feast. So we'll kind of see what they do there. But I'm not very high on the Broncos, and I also know if Sean Payton does not get this turned around in relatively short order, that this is not going to be pretty, and he's going to end up unemployed pretty quickly. So, and then the Broncos are going to end up with even more egg on their face, because now they've given up multiple first-round picks and multiple second-round picks for Payton and Russ, and neither one of them will still be there. So there's got to be some little bit of hot seat going on.
I think two things can be true. I think Sean Payton could be vastly overrated, and I think Russell Wilson was vastly overrated as well. I think he was in a good spot with Seattle, and he looked better than what he was. And I think that a 1 year under Nathaniel Hackett has shown that Russell Wilson probably isn't the guy people thought he was. And I think that there's a noticeable improvement when Sean Payton got there. So he did make Russell Wilson look better. And I don't think that the Broncos offense or team in general was that great. But I will say this for the negative side for Sean Payton is the defense noticeably got worse with the Broncos. It was the worst it's been probably the last 8, 9, 10 years. But the offense was the best that it was since 2015. So a lot of that is Sean Payton. Russell Wilson is a middling of the pack quarterback. That's not middling starter, I should say. Middling starter. So he's still in the starting caliber type of quarterback, but it's very debatable where he lies in there. I think he has a good chance with the Steelers to rehab his image, because the Steelers have a better offensive line than the Broncos. I think that we can both agree that George Pickens is probably a better receiver than what the Broncos have. The two tight ends there currently are better than what the Broncos have. And they may bring in another wide receiver in the draft and maybe go crazy and bring in Bowers at tight end. Wilson has a chance to show that he's still good. I'm not optimistic about that, but I know that you're big on Wilson and Sean Payton. It might be a year or two before we have a determination on Sean Payton. This year doesn't look great. It doesn't look like it's going to start off great at all.
No, they probably will finish last in this division if I had to make a guess right now.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So I think that's enough about the Broncos, because I feel like we're not going to be talking about them a lot this year, even from a fantasy standpoint. I think Javonte Williams' value is really hurt. I think Cortland Sutton's value is really hurt as well. But we can move on to the Chargers. And the Chargers agree to a 2-year deal with former Ravens running back Gus Edwards. So the Gus bus goes to LA. I do believe that means that Josh Kelly will not be back. It seems like a Josh Kelly replacement. This does not seem like Justin Herbert's normal running back that he plays with, so I'm really interested to see if it's Isaiah Spiller or Elijah Dotson or someone else completely that stands up and takes a hold of the other side of this role that Gus Edwards will have. So it'll be interesting there a little bit, because there is some candidates in-house that could take it, but then they could also get an undrafted rookie or a late-round rookie to fill that need as well. And then the Chargers agreed to a 3-year deal with former Seahawks tight end Will Dissly. I actually believe this is an upgrade over an older Gerald Everett. So we'll see if that actually reigns true. I just haven't been a big Gerald Everett fan the last couple of years. And the Chargers release longtime wide receiver and former first-round pick wide receiver Mike Williams. And a reunion is possible, but first, Mike Williams will be testing the market. Now, I know earlier in the offseason, you were very big on the Chargers having to release Khalil Mack, Joey Bosa, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and they only released one of the 4, which kind of surprises you. And it looks like they did a restructure with Khalil Mack. So it does look like Khalil Mack is safe. There is still some question around Keenan Allen and Joey Bosa, but kind of see what happens there. But they did get under the cap before the league year started.
Well, they got a big help from the boosted salary cap, which was a little bit unexpected. So that helps a bunch. And they were able to renegotiate Khalil Mack's contract, and they cut Mike Williams. So those two are the two most obvious. Nick Bosa, I don't know whether they're going to end up trading him or not. I don't know. He doesn't have a lot of trade value right now, so I don't see them trading him. I don't see them cutting him. I think that they'll try to renegotiate his as well. We'll see. Keenan Allen, I don't know what that offense would be if they let Keenan Allen move on in any capacity. He seems like the one to keep unless you get a bounty for him. As far as Gus Edwards, I think he's a backup running back or committee back. I think that they're going to draft Blake Corum, Harbaugh's former running back with Michigan, at some point in the draft. I just feel like that's something that's going to happen. And I think it'll be a committee. Will Disley does have some receiving chops, but he also is a good blocker. So it's interesting, Sir Jeffrey, that I have talked about how much they're going to start running now and pass a little bit less. And that their first few moves are to cut a wide receiver, pick up a power back, and pick up a run blocking tight end. So it indicates to me they're going to do a little bit less passing. So I don't know how you feel about that. But
Disley has been a pass catcher too in his time in Seattle, so it's not out of the question. Sure. Also, I did notice we missed one signing for the Titans. They did re-sign kicker Nick Folk, and in reading on this in the background, it's really funny because Titan fans are saying that Calvin Ridley picked the team with the worst odds to sign him for very obvious reasons. Gave me a good chuckle here in the background.
I hope he did it through somebody else's account.
Is betting where someone signs the same as betting on the NFL?
Does it count if you're not under contract? Like, is that the real reason he waited till after 4 so he can say he wasn't under contract?
He's a genius. And did you see the money that he actually took a picture with his child with?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's the money he won from this.
Probably. But I'm just like, do you know how disgusting that money is? And you can put it with a newborn baby? Like, come on, man. I used to work at a bank, so I know how nasty bills can get. Come on, man.
It could be photoshopped in there. He doesn't got that cash on him. But that comment really made me laugh and brighten my day quite a bit there.
That's so funny.
But I do see the Chargers potentially drafting a wide receiver. They could potentially sign a wide receiver that's out there. They could potentially bring back Mike Williams as well. Mike Williams was never going to be worth the $30 million that he was going to be paid this year or his cap hit. So we'll see if he comes back at a discount or if he goes somewhere else. Imagine him with Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes for the first 4 weeks. He'd probably be worth his weight in gold until he gets injured. Oh, right. So we can switch gears here to the third AFC West team, and that is the Las Vegas Raiders. They finally release quarterback Jimmy Garoppolo, and they also release wide receiver Hunter Renfrow. The second one seemed like that was coming last year, and it finally came to fruition. I don't know if it was a dead cap thing or what kind of was going on with that, but the Raiders also agreed to a 2-year, $25 million deal with former Colts quarterback Gardner Minshew, who was one play away from leading the Colts to the playoffs last year. So we'll kind of see what he does here now, playing with the best receiver that he's ever played with in his career, a good number 2 in Jacoby Myers, and he's got Trey Tucker coming up. He has a bunch of weapons here in Las Vegas. They also signed tight end Harrison Bryant, and they also got Michael Mayer that they drafted last year. So he's going to have some weapons to play with if he is the starter. 2 years, $25 million deal for Gardner Minshew, so I do believe that makes him a borderline starter. He's going to at least get an opportunity to compete for this job, and Alex and I may need to have a bet on who's going to be the week 1 starter for the Raiders.
I think that if you put Aiden O'Connell on the Colts last year instead of Minshew, I think Aiden O'Connell would have been better than what Minshew was. That's what I think.
Yeah, but I also believe Minshew was better than anything Anthony Richardson would have been last year for the Colts.
I think Anthony Richardson needed to play to develop, and Anthony Richardson has a sky-high ceiling. So I'm glad that he didn't, because if he played, they might have won.
Maybe, or they might have been much worse.
I think I semi-predicted Minshew to the Raiders at some point. So I think I
In
made
your
a
head?
joke. No, I think I made a joke to you. Like, what happens if Minshew goes to the Raiders? Are you going to start liking them? But
Of course, Minshew's my guy. I would love him
and
in Carolina.
he's got wide receivers to throw to. We'll see how that works out for him.
The best in his entire career.
Yeah. I think Aiden O'Connell has a better chance of being a long-term solution than Minshew does, but I think that they go rookie quarterback at some point and use one of those two as the bridge. So
But
we'll see.
I think you look at O'Connell like I look at Minshew. So just make sure when we're in year 6 and O'Connell's on his 6th team that you remember that.
Well, it depends on how they want to run the offense. If they want a vertical offense, they need to use O'Connell if it's between those two. If they want to do short passes, and just move the chains and not open it up fully down the field, then Minshew's the guy. Minshew's a good game manager. O'Connell was a wild
I think Minshew
gunslinger.
has a good deep ball. I think you're crazy for thinking that he doesn't.
Listen, he's not Uncle Rico, although he looks like Uncle Rico. He's not Uncle Rico. He can't throw it over the mountain.
Doesn't have to. He's got to throw it up for Devontae Adams to get it.
Yeah, I don't think like if you look at the game film of the Colts, I think he was very limiting for that offense. I think that offense would have been more opened up with Anthony Richardson than with Minshew. I think Shane Steichen made Minshew look like a starting quarterback, and Minshew, the best he could get was the highest backup dollars that he could get, and didn't get starting money at all. Daniel Jones got $45 million a year. Minshew got a max $15 million contract, basically. He got the 2-year deal, $15 million guaranteed.
So Gardner Minshew has a 62.6% completion percentages when passing for 20 plus yards in his career. So for 20 plus yard passes. So he can open it up plenty because it feels
what was his average per attempt?
5 of those. That is a great question. Do you have the answer?
Can get it.
His best yards per attempt were in 2022 with 8.7 yards.
Not great.
That is great. 7 is average. 8.7 is well over 7.
Mm-hmm. That was what, playing in 2 games?
With Stoichen. But he can do it, is kind of what I was more alluding to.
6.7 this past season.
But you also have to remember we had rookie Josh Downs, we had Michael Pittman, and that was pretty much it.
Alec Pierce? Don't forget about him.
Who?
Alec Pierce.
I don't really think highly of Alec Pierce. Do you?
No, but he's someone that fantasy owners keep saying is going to be good. They keep saying he's going to be good, and haven't seen it yet. He's got to actually catch the ball.
Yeah, not for me. That's for sure. I think we are good on the Gardner Minshew versus Aiden O'Connell talk, but I do believe we're going to have to add in 8. We're trying to get to 7 bets, so 11, and we'll narrow it down to the 7 that we want to bet on, and we want to get good ones before the end of the off season, so we can kind of go from there. All right, so we can hop to the last team in the AFC West, and that's the Chiefs. Agreed to a 1-year deal with former Bengals tight end Irv Smith. Does this mean that Travis Kelce is being bumped down the depth chart for 2024?
No. Irv Smith is a deep backup for this team. Not even barely worth missing at all. Won't be buying into him. I don't care unless Kelce somehow gets hurt. That's the only way. No.
All right, but I do think that he might overtake Noah Gray, or at least dampen Noah Gray's value if anything ever happened to Travis Kelce. But the Chiefs aren't doing much. We didn't expect them to.
No, I don't think that they sign really anyone on the offensive side. I think that they draft someone on the offensive side. They spent their money franchise tagging their cornerback and re-signing Chris Jones, which is what I said they should do. I know that past $1 million through a restructure. Don't know what they're going to do with that, but we'll see.
You were trying to say Calvin Ridley, weren't you?
Yeah, I mean, he was a free agent.
I saw you on X. Everyone should follow Alex on X to see all of his wrong opinions on there.
I didn't even ask.
It's very possible. It's not. I don't know if it's likely, but it's possible. And it's a great, great, great thing too if he did it. But I don't know. I don't know if he would ever make that mistake again. I think he's definitely scared from getting his hand slapped.
I don't know. He might be an addict. We'll see.
You ready to go to the NFC?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see if we can power through these. So we'll start with the
NFC's
NFC.
the better conference, sir. The better teams play there.
No, but we'll start with the NFC East, and the Washington Commanders are signing a bunch of former players for Cliff Kingsbury and the new head coach as well. So they started with Zach Ertz, who played with Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona. He now becomes the best tight end that they've had. And they also brought in Austin Eckler on a cheap 2-year deal. I don't know whether he starts there or if he's in the committee. And they brought in former Jaguars kicker Brandon McManus. They brought in Marcus Mariota as a backup or bridge quarterback there, especially after losing Brissett. And they also are signing Crowder, of all people.
Your boy.
It's like nothing's changed in the last 10 years. He's there back then, and now it's like the owners have old think. But yeah,
but there's new owners with old think. I do think that Crowder is just strictly there to be a return specialist, which is fine at this point. And it is interesting to see them sign Austin Eckler to a cheap deal. I still think Austin Eckler will spell him. And he could spell him in a Antonio Gibson way, or he could be a little bit more involved, and we won't know that until we actually see a few games. And from Brandon McManus, I don't believe anyone wants to kick for Jacksonville anymore. So Will Lutz was like, I see what you got going on here. Let me go the other way. It's kind of interesting that two players, Kelvin Ridley and Will Lutz, both spurred the Jacksonville Jaguars and went in a different direction here. I don't know. I don't think Marcus Mariota at this point is any better than Sam Howell and Marcus Mariota had multiple years starting. Jeez, I don't know what I would do there. Like, they're probably going to take a quarterback at 2. I still think they stay at 2. I still think the Bears choose at 1. I think the Commanders are going to get them. I think they're going to look at the rookie tape and they're going to get comfortable with 2 quarterbacks. So we're going to see here what is actually going to happen with Sam Howell here in the next couple of weeks. I do know that teams are interested in trading for him, and every team should be for a backup role. Absolutely.
Yeah, I still think there's a decent chance they try to get Caleb Williams, get the franchise guy. I think that there's a non-0% chance. It seems unlikely right now, but it could happen. I just don't think a lot of the Commanders, if these guys just don't at all. And that's one of the things that we heard why the Lions offensive coordinator Ben Johnson didn't want to sign as a head coach there is because he got the sense that they're basketball. They don't know anything about football. It kind of seems like that a little bit so far.
So if you had to bet your house on it, who do you think the Bears starting quarterback is week 1? And you didn't have a choice not to bet your house.
Well, this is not a legally binding contractual thing, so Justin Fields.
You're going to lose your house. So Ryan Poles has already said they're going to do right by Justin Fields on this, and they're going to find him the right home. So to walk that back now feels very icky, first of all. So we'll see it.
I don't know if they said they're going to find him a new home. They said that they're going to do right by Justin Fields, whether it's staying with the Bears or finding him a new home. I don't know if they outright said that they're trading him.
Well, what does that mean by do right by Justin Fields?
Give him an extension.
Are you comfortable with that?
It's either trade him to a favorable spot or give him an extension. Those are the only 2 ways to do right by him. Right?
Yeah. I mean, he literally said that he wanted to do right by quarterback Justin Fields. He's never once said that Justin Fields is our quarterback of the future either. And
did he ever say he's on the block?
No, but Josh Allen's not wondering, like, no one's saying they're doing right by just Josh Allen. Like, he's just the franchise guy. He's not going anywhere. Like, we're not questioning that. I just don't know.
I mean, the Broncos didn't say they were going to do right by Russell Wilson. They just released him.
Yeah, they really did do right by him, because now he got to choose where he goes, and he gets his full salary for this year, and he got to choose where he went.
Eagles didn't say we're going to do right by Carson Wentz. I mean, you can just keep going. Teams that move on just move on. They just do it. And we're already into free agency, the official start period, and they have not.
Is that because there's no suitors? That's the question.
Or is that because they aren't even shopping them? We don't know.
Yeah. What if there's absolutely no suitors for him, though?
Then he's staying on that team, and he's starting week 1.
Over a rookie?
Caleb Williams shouldn't start at all this year. I think he should have a redshirt year, because there is a lot.
So you think Caleb Williams going to the Bears now?
If it's Caleb Williams. But if it's not Caleb Williams, I mean, almost any of these guys need to be on the bench for a while.
Yeah. The problem is just having the new guy walk into a locker room with the old guy still chilling there. Kind of reminds me of Rookie of the Year, when the Rookie of the Year walks in and there's the old guy Rocket still sitting there in the chair, slumped over.
We saw Jordan Love go to the Packers when they still had Aaron Rodgers, and he sat for 3 years and started
101?
his 4th year. So, no, I think the Bears should trade down. I've been consistent about that. I don't like Caleb Williams at all. If they trade down, they could draft
the guy you like
next year.
No one likes either now.
What now?
Either. Drake May.
I'm not like sky high on Fields, but I think Fields is better this year than Caleb Williams. And we don't know that teams don't like him, because I've also heard that Chicago's not even taking calls on him. So I don't know. I don't know. But it's weird that there's not like a definitive plan in place. Like, if they're going to trade the pick, why hasn't it already happened? If they're going to trade Justin Fields, why didn't it happen before the start of free agency? Neither has happened. So all we can do is speculate.
What if there's no traction for Justin Fields, though? That could be the reason why he is still there. They might have to cut him. This would be ridiculous, but they might have to.
If there's no traction for Justin Fields, they should trade the pick, because they can get a team up. And if Justin Fields doesn't work out this year, they have multiple picks next year. They can trade up for a quarterback next year.
But there's no quarterbacks next year. That's the problem. You get a Kenny Pickett
That's what people say all the time. And there'll be Shedeur Sanders. There'll be Ewers.
How did Kenny Pickett, Malik Willis work out? How'd that year work out?
Shedeur Sanders and Ewers from Texas, they're both better than those guys.
Okay, but Sam Howell was a top 5 pick at one point.
Things changed. Was a potential top 5 pick to go to the rack. And that's all that they could trade for. That's all for too.
Things change. But I think at the end of the day, Justin Fields needs to be traded, because Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus are coaching and GMing for their job. If they go 7-10 with Justin Fields, they are both terminated, fired. The end. If they go 7-10 with a rookie, they are still going to keep their position. Everyone is going to do what's best for their career, and their career, like, I know we are in a league with somebody that's like, this is best for the team. Well, Ryan Poles and Matt Eberflus are not doing what's best for the team. They're doing what's best for Matt Eberflus and Ryan Poles to remain employed. They're not worried about 2025, 2026 Chicago Bears.
Let me ask you this. If you're the Chicago Bears and you keep Justin Fields, but you go 8-9, are they getting fired? If you're the Chicago Bears, you get rid of Justin Fields, but draft Caleb Williams and go 3-14. Are you getting fired?
Probably. So, do you think they'll go 3-14 with the Vikings? I think they could sweep the Vikings with Caleb Williams.
No, I don't think so.
What?
I don't think so. I think
what?
If Chicago goes Caleb Williams and the Vikings rookie quarterback, I think they're getting a better quarterback, and they have Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and Hawkinson.
So this will be the last thing I say, and we can move on to the Eagles after that. But the Bears are playing with house money. You don't mess around with house money. You spend it. Period. This is the Carolina Panthers' #1 overall pick that they acquired last year. You do not acquire the #1 overall pick that way, ever. I don't think it's ever happened in the history of the NFL. They would be stupid to trade out of it. They have a team that they've already built around a quarterback. I don't know what more they can do, to be honest.
I think the first overall pick is more valuable in trade than it is
All right. At some point, you got to use it and spend it and actually get a quarterback of the future that can throw for 4,000 yards because they've never had one in their entire franchise history.
Most of the starting quarterbacks in this league right now.
Agreed. But this is a quarterback-rich draft, and I don't believe you're going to get a quarterback-rich draft the following year.
Yeah, but we had a quarterback-rich draft, and 4 out of the 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round ended up not being the guy. Right. So
we'll see. We'll see. I know we're very steadfast on this. I just think that people are going to go the path of keeping their jobs, or having the most likelihood of keeping their jobs. And I think it's moving off of Justin Fields as the most likely path for the Chicago Bears to brass to remain in power past 2024.
Anyway, because we have talked about it a lot, the Eagles have stolen away the Giants running back Saquon Barkley to a 3-year deal. They finally got their upgrade at running back, we hope. And they also got Devontae Parker after the Patriots released him to a 1-year deal. If I'm not mistaken, it's nets to like a $1 million contract for the Eagles. So it kind of makes sense because it's dirt cheap for them, with the Patriots eating most of the dead cap from that contract. And they signed Jake Elliott to a 4-year extension.
I think that Barkley is an upgrade. I don't know how he fits fantasy-wise this year because there's still the tush push. There's still that might be going away with Jason Kelce retiring. I love the Devontae Parker signing. I love him as a third option for the Eagles because they have AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. The only thing I'm going to hate about that is saying Devontae and Devonta. Like, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge. Their names are so similar. But other than that, like, I love that signing for them. I still think Devontae Parker has a boatload of talent. I know he's a little bit up there in age now, but he's playing for a team that could potentially be a contender for maybe the first time in his career. They were not a contender in Miami when he was in Miami, and they definitely were not a contender in New England when he was in New England. So for the first time in his career, he can play for a contender. But Saquon Barkley is a huge steal from the Giants. Giants' whole offense went through Saquon Barkley, and I think that was a dumb move to not franchise tag him. He made more with the Eagles than the franchise tag, so clearly there is some value there in Saquon Barkley, even though the Giants didn't see it.
Yeah, I like him there. I know a lot of fans here in Houston are upset that the Texans didn't sign him, but I didn't want to spend that kind of money on a running back personally, so I'm happy for the Eagles to try to patch over their holes and their flaws on their offense with a running back signing. But
just cut Robert Woods and not get Joe Mixon, and you could have had Saquon Barkley. We're using your Ridley logic.
Parker's a low risk signing for them. I wouldn't be super excited about it, but low risk.
No, I still think he's a top 60 wide receiver, though, as far as fantasy goes this year, once I boil everything out.
Yeah, I'm not so sure
He'll be close.
anymore.
He'll be close.
Pretty out on him, but we'll see as we get closer to the season. But the Giants replaced the hole in their running back corpse that Saquon left with
a corpse.
Texans running back Devin Singletary, CORPS, corpse, not with the E at the end, Jeff. Anyway, Devin Singletary joining the Giants. He reunites with Brian Daboll from their Buffalo days. I think he's a solid signing. He shouldn't be the only running back signing that they do, but he'll probably be the marginal lead back, assuming they bring somebody else in as well. Giants also get Isaiah McKenzie, another guy who reunites with Daboll. And they also signed Drew Lock as well to be the backup for Daniel Jones.
I forgot to put that on here. Is he the backup to Daniel Jones, or is he competing with Daniel Jones? That is a good question.
It's sad that the two players that are paid $40 million differently this year are competing for the same job.
They're not that far apart in talent. Do you concur with that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would say right now Daniel Jones is marginally better, but he's not $40 million better.
If I am the Bears and I'm going to trade 1.01, the Giants are one of the teams that I would target all. And then you get a chance to get 101 next year with the Giants, even if they get Caleb Williams.
Keep it going 3 years in a row. That would be insane.
Oh, right. We can move over to the NFC North. And we're going to start. This is going to be a small one. The Bears agree to a 3-year deal with former Eagles running back DeAndre Swift. I'm not really sure what this does to the backfield. I know Swift is going to have a role. I assume Herbert will still have a smaller role, and I'm assuming Roshan will still have a role in the offense. So we'll kind of see what that means. But Swift actually remained healthy last year for the first time ever. So that was interesting. He didn't start week 1, if you remember correctly. Kenneth Gainwell passed him on the depth chart in the preseason. And then Kenneth Gainwell got hurt, and then DeAndre Swift took the job and didn't look back after that. So something to keep an eye out and an ear out as the season goes. And what do you think about the running back news here with the Bears?
Well, you've also buried the lead. One of the guys we talked about earlier with the Chargers, Gerald Everett, has moved on to the Bears on a 2-year contract as well. He'll be the tight end 2 behind Kmet. I think that when it comes to Swift, I think this is not the right team for him. I wanted him for the Texans. I don't know how he fits with Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson. I would have rather those two guys have a chance at the lead role or at least split, and now it's a 3-person committee. I would have even rather Swift go to like the Vikings or go to the Chargers or another team where he could potentially have a bigger workload and be in a better offense. So not thrilled about it personally. I think that lowers all 3 of their values.
Yeah, me too. And speaking of running back news, and thank you very much for catching me on that. There was a ton of transactions over the last few days. I did forget to put Gerald Everett on our note. We've made a couple running back moves. First, they released running back Aaron Jones, and then they also agreed to a 4-year deal with former Raiders running back Josh Jacobs. I believe this is an upgrade at wide receiver or at running back, and I do believe that this is a younger version of Aaron Jones. And this is a team where Josh Jacobs doesn't need to be the focal point, as they have 4 young receivers and 2 young tight ends. But we will see kind of what the Packers do to supplement that going forward. What are your thoughts on the swapping out Aaron Jones for Josh Jacobs?
A little split. I've never really been a Josh Jacobs believer. I know that he had a good season 2 years ago that everyone raves about when he was a high-profile running back coming into the league. I really like Aaron Jones. I understand that Aaron Jones is older, and I understand that he has a few injury concerns now, but when he's healthy, I think he's a better back. With that said, I think that Josh Jacobs is coming into a better situation than he was playing in with the Raiders. It's better offensive line. I think that he has a pretty good chance to have a sky-high potential. I just don't like the way he runs, and I don't think he's very fast, and I don't think he's very powerful, and I think he's kind of above average, in my opinion. So me personally, I'm going to avoid Josh Jacobs. Aaron Jones, I kind of like in Minnesota, just volume and opportunity-wise. I think that he's going to be pretty solid there. The 1-year investment, wouldn't buy into him in Dynasty, but I'm assuming that they lean on the run game more than they have in the past, and we'll see what Sam Darnold can do, slinging up there for the Vikings. Led into the next one anyway, but I think that the Vikings signings were lackluster. I think Aaron Jones kind of saved the day for their offseason so far. Jeff, how do you feel about those two?
So I kind of like the spots for both of them. That I have Aaron Jones on a 1-year deal in my dynasty league, so this is like a perfect spot for him to do the 1-year deal on. I do like Sam Darnold. I've always liked Sam Darnold, so this is a shot for him to be a starter in this league again. Baker Mayfield finally rehabbed his career after so many years with the Buccaneers, so it's possible to rehab a career. I do think Sam Darnold would have had a better job rehabbing it under Kyle Shanahan in San Francisco, but here we are, and this is the opportunity. And the thing that we didn't mention here, the Lions really didn't make any offensive moves here during this time period, so it just seemed like they're going to stay status quo with their offense, which is good because their offense is actually relatively good. I do expect them to bring Josh Reynolds back because he is a Jared Goff favorite. But yeah, so we'll kind of see where this goes here. Oh, right. Anything else on the NFC North before we move over to the South and Baker Mayfield? More Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, I think the Lions are focusing on defense and free agency, and they're going to focus on offense a little bit more in the draft. So if they make any improvements, like at the wide receiver position, we'll see it in the draft.
Yeah, I just don't know where they can make it because I think Jamison Williams is a lock for the roster. I think St. Brown's a lock. they bring Josh Reynolds back, he would be a lock, and then Khalif Raymond's a lock. So they would have only one more, potentially two more wide receiver spots open.
I think Reynolds and Raymond aren't that great. I think they can improve there. And I think
They
Williams.
just signed Raymond to an extension, though.
Okay,
He's
well
their
then
kick
he's a wide
returner.
receiver 4 for them. I think that.
Yeah.
I think Williams is a wide receiver 3. I don't think he's proven to be a wide receiver 2 yet. So
he's not.
You're so right. They could easily upgrade at the wide receiver 2 spot.
Yeah, we'll see if they actually do it in the draft and they get a guy that's actually good. Because we all know that drafting players is a little bit of a lottery ticket.
Yep. So we move on to the NFC South now. And we've already talked about a couple weeks ago that Mike Evans re-signed with the Buccaneers, while they've now re-signed their quarterback, Baker Mayfield, to a 3-year, $100 million deal. They've re-signed their kicker, Chase McLaughlin, for 3 years. They've re-signed Chase Edmonds to a 1-year deal. I think that's more of a depth piece. Jeff, is that it for the Bucs? Do they keep Godwin on the roster? Do you think any other moves happen? And how do you feel about these moves?
I think they run it back. I think they like guys named Chase and Baker. That's very clear with these moves. I'm a little concerned about impressive. So if they think they can improve off of their not super impressive front, that's we'll see. We'll get to the improvements of the other teams here coming up. But yeah, I don't think they've done enough to A, remain a playoff team, and B, even win this division next year.
All right, well, speaking of a team that could win that division, the Atlanta Falcons signed Vikings quarterback Kirk Cousins to a 4-year, $180 million deal, which is more than I would have thought he would have gotten before the offseason started. And
it's pretty close to what you said, though.
Yeah, I just think Kirk Cousins is the king of getting massive deals. He's gotten more money and contracts than Tom Brady and probably Peyton Manning have. And he's nowhere close to the level of quarterback that they're just insane to me. And he apparently recruited former Bears wide receiver Darnell Mooney to join him on a 3-year deal, which I thought was kind of surprising. But Darnell Mooney did have some awesome metrics his first couple seasons as a starter and just not so much last year. So we'll see if Kirk Cousins can rehab that. And so we will see. I think that it's a complete game changer for the Falcons to even just have reliable quarterback play, let alone a really good quarterback. So we'll see if that can make a difference. The NFC is a little bit easier to get to the playoffs, and the NFC South at this moment is fairly easy to try to win it.
Yeah, I think they're a Super Bowl contender with signing Kirk Cousins. Cousins has 29, 25, 27, 30, 26, 35, 33, 29, and then 18 touchdowns in 8 games last year. So he is a touchdown machine, and so that should rehab Drake London, that should rehab Kyle Pitts, that should rehab Bijan Robinson's value quite a bit. And not only that, but Mooney is their number 2 wide receiver. They didn't have one. There's nothing there behind Drake London. So this was a necessity to go out and actually overspend for Mooney because there's nothing there on the roster.
Well, and I think you can view Kirk Cousins as a better version of Matt Ryan. And they almost won a Super Bowl with Matt Ryan. So, yeah, I can see them being Super Bowl contenders. And I think that Atlanta is a better team than Minnesota is right now.
Agreed. So we'll see what happens with this, but we could see some rehabbed fantasy values on the wide receivers and tight ends for the Falcons. I'm here for that. We just have a roster move by the Saints. Michael Thomas is officially a free agent due to language in his contract from 2023, so he's no longer with the New Orleans Saints. And that's pretty much the Saints' only offensive move this offseason. But the other team in the division, the Carolina Panthers, they traded a 6th-round pick and a cornerback for Deontay Johnson and a 7th-round pick. So good low-risk, high-reward gamble here for Carolina to get some pass-catching options for Bryce Young. And we will see what happens with them here going forward. I don't expect them to be a contender, but I do expect them to be better this year.
Yes, I expect to see some improvement, and I expect them to not be done improving the wide receiver group. So I expect at least a draft pick to be a high second-day wide receiver. And I expect Dallas to help that team improve as well. That's the biggest thing that they did this offseason was bring in Dave Canales. I expect also them to add to the running back room in the draft as well. We'll see. They've certainly done some musical chairs on the defensive side, and we'll see how that worked out for them as the season starts. A lot of teams are doing that right now. Saints, Michael Thomas, end of an era, but over the last 4 years, out of 66 possible games, he only played in 20 of them. So I absolutely see them moving on from him, whether that was real injuries or whether that was him purposely sitting out. I don't know, but I could see him going to a team like the Ravens. They have a thing for rehabbing older, former great wide receivers' values. So we'll see if that's where he ends up going.
Bills Chiefs.
I don't know. We can talk about another
with Kirk
West division, and that would be the NFC West, the last division that we're going through here. Tyler Lockett restructured his contract with Seattle. It really didn't take much of a pay cut, but it definitely helps them this year. They were able to re-sign Noah Fant to a 2-year deal. So he is their starting tight end. So that they have 3 really good wide receivers, a pretty solid tight end, 2 good running backs. They have Geno Smith and potentially drafting another quarterback. We'll see how they do with this new regime, the new head coaching staff. We'll see. Rams, 3-year deal with a former Seahawk tight end, Colby Parkinson. I don't get it.
Me either.
Maybe they see something that I don't. I don't get it.
And I gotta trust McVay a little bit here with his Puka Nacua. I think he sees what he likes in talent and he goes for it. And this was actually not a cheap deal either.
Yeah, expected some more signings from them, but they're probably pretty close to the cap. So we'll see.
They spent $22.5 million over 3 years on Colby Parkinson.
That's too high. I mean, maybe he's better than what I think. I don't know.
Exactly. Like, I feel like they see something we don't see here, and I'm a little bit interested. Like, is he better than Tyler Higbee? Who knows? They just re-signed him too, so
maybe Colby Parkinson's a good blocker.
They need that because we've talked about how Kyron Williams is not a good pass blocker. But allowed the 5th most hurries last year, so that'll be interesting to see going forward. All right, you got 2 more teams.
So 49ers used a 2nd round restricted free agent tender on super stud Jawan Jennings. Super stud 4th wide receiver, Jawan Jennings.
Super Bowl star. He threw a touchdown pass.
He's someone that if they, for whatever reason, traded Brandon Ayuk, would immediately shoot up fantasy boards. They clearly want to keep him around. They clearly value him a lot. He had good moments in the postseason, especially. He's had good moments in the regular season. Not a lot of usage. They tend to like to run the ball at a high percentage. So you don't get to see him on a regular basis, but they value him. And like I said, if Ayuk is gone, he shoots up. They've also done a lot of defensive cuts / trades / signings. So they're another one of these teams that's doing a lot of turnover at the defensive side. The Cardinals, they have done a 3-year deal with former Seahawks 4th running back DJ Dallas. So he's more of a special teams guy. So it makes a lot of sense for them. No word yet on Hollywood Brown on potential re-signing with Cardinals or going somewhere else. Cardinals also cut their long-standing left tackle and took like a $20 million cap hit for that. So they are probably in the marketplace for a right tackle, and they're going to move their previous right tackle to left tackle. And we'll see where DJ Humphries goes. But I think that is significant as well. But so far, James Conner looks like he's keeping his job there, which I appreciate.
Yeah, the only thing I'll say out of this bunch is it looks like you got to take an L on the Tyler Lockett thing because you said that he was a potential cut, and he is sticking around.
I didn't say he was going to get cut. I said he was a potential cut.
I'm
glad he's sticking around, and I'm glad we know where he's at. So I'm okay with it.
All right. I think that is all of the signings, and we will cover next week phase 2 of this free agent period.
All right. Well, that does it for this episode of the Never Too Early Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you all for downloading or listening to this episode. And please don't forget to like and subscribe. Please leave us a comment and share the show. Every little bit helps.
So you can find this and every previous episode on all podcasting apps by searching N2E Fantasy and with our handle at N2E Fantasy on all social media platforms. Please join our community. We're very active on social media and give us a follow. Until next time, take care of yourselves and remember, it's truly never too early for fantasy football. Thank you again.
Everybody.